Hey guys, so today I am going to be reading scary stories from Reddit on haunted workplaces. So the idea actually came to me the other day while I was talking to some of my coworkers about weird things that they have experienced at my job, like seeing shadows and feeling someone poke them from the back while no one is around. So I got curious and I decided to look on Reddit and see what I can find on haunted workplaces. So please get comfy and let's begin. Alright guys, so the first story is called It's Not Always Quiet in This Library. And this was actually submitted by Scarlet Lion. Alright, and she wrote, I work in a library on a college campus that was built before the American Civil War. So it's very, very old. I close on Friday nights and open Saturday mornings, and it's quite active during those periods. I've seen people in the book stacks that disappear. I've heard clothes rustling when there's no one around. And on Saturday mornings, especially when I'm opening up, I'll hear a very loud rustle, like someone is quickly flipping through book pages. I'm the only one in the library, and the times that I've gone to check out the noise, it completely stops until I walk away, but it happens a lot. The employees also have a lounge in the back of the building that you need to take the elevator down to and use the reverse doors to get to. There's a long hallway that's quite dark, and I've heard men talking there when I'm completely alone. I've heard people walk up behind me when there's no one there. And recently I've heard footsteps come up behind me and a man whisper in my ear, "Hey." I actually thought it was one of my coworkers who I get along with really well. And I turned around and fully expecting him to be there until I remembered that it was Saturday, and the only other person in the library at the time was another coworker who was at least a floor above me. Wow, really creepy. Especially hearing someone whisper in your ear. Ooh. Alright, so the next story is called Little Boy in the Warehouse, and this was submitted by Judy HSU 0521. I recently found a job in an import/export company. There are 5 office units and a big warehouse attached where we store all of our products. I work in Unit C, and our lunchroom is on the 2nd floor of Unit A. A few of my coworkers who work in the warehouse have been telling me that they have been hearing sounds of someone either walking or running in the very back side of Unit A warehouse. Unit A section of the warehouse is usually dark because we store unpopular items there that don't sell well. We seldom go there, so we turn off the lights. One day, my coworker heard those footsteps again. She decided to see what it was. She followed the sounds and actually saw what seemed like a little boy running away from her. At first, she thought, why is there a boy here and how did he get in? He followed him deeper into the warehouse and he disappeared. I never really believed in the story or saw or heard anything until one day during my lunch break. I decided to go eat in our lunchroom located on the 2nd floor of Unit A. As I was walking up the stairs, I heard there was already someone in the lunchroom. Thinking it was my coworker, I said, "Hey." Once I entered, there was nobody there, but I still heard sounds coming from the bathroom in a corner. This bathroom is extra tiny and the toilet has no seat, so nobody ever uses it. At this point, I was a bit scared but curious what the sound was and who was in there, so I just walked over to see. The bathroom door was open. Nobody was in there, but I saw the sound was coming from a flushing toilet. Water still swirling. I was so freaked out, I never ate in that lunchroom again. I wouldn't eat there again either. Okay guys, so this story actually reminds me of something that happened at my job. So I work in a warehouse setting, and I remember one day the shipping and receiving manager told me that one early morning he was opening up, he was the only one there. It was still pretty dark outside. So when he opened the door, he saw a shadow person. So he screamed, "Hey," thinking that someone probably broke in. So as soon as he screamed, the shadow took off behind the stack of Gaylord pallets. But when he took the turn that he saw the shadow take, he got so creeped out because he said that it was a dead end, you guys. There was nowhere for anyone to go. And another thing that he said was that whenever he's in his office, he likes to keep the door open. And he said that multiple times something would close them, and he would get creeped out and he would just leave out of there. So yeah. Alright, so the next story is called Little Girl by Card 86. I work nights at a children's hospital. I've always heard stories from people at work about strange things happening. There is supposedly a little boy who haunts one of the units here. They say every night around 2:30 there's a rocking chair on the unit and it will start rocking on its own. He does mischievous things like opening drawers or closing doors down the hall. I have never witnessed any of this, but my wife, who also works at the hospital, has seen some things. A lady who works in the pre-op area tells of hearing children's laughter or seeing tiny footprints on a wet floor she had just mopped. She says she sees a kid running down the hall out of the corner of her eye. Again, I had never witnessed any of this until one night. I was walking through the pre-op area where I heard people talking. I started looking around to see who it was. There are only 3 people here at night and I know where my 2 co-workers were. I walked down the hall of the playroom and discovered the television was left on. It's mounted on the wall, so I reached up to turn it off. Just as my hand got close to the TV, it shuts off on its own. It's dark in the room, not pitch black, but dimly lit. I turned around thinking someone was messing with me, but no one was there. Just the remote control sitting on a tiny table with a tiny chair next to it. It didn't scare me, it was more like a wow, that just happened. So I go to leave the play area and walk out into the hallway. I turn left and at the end of the hallway I see, the best way to describe it is, a wisp of a little girl running around the corner. Just a glimpse for a split second. I left the area, not frightened, just thinking, if that baby wants to watch television, I'm not going to bother her. I wouldn't want to bother her either. I would just do the same thing and just pretend I didn't see anything and just go about my business. Like, don't even acknowledge it, just ignore it. Alright, so the next story is called I'm Tormented by the Ghost of a Former Guest at the Hotel Where I Work. And this is submitted by TY2 The Rail. I think that's what it says. The 3rd floor. That's the one floor at work I can't stand. Not because I'm scared, but because I'm annoyed. There's an entity on the floor that likes to harass me every time I come through. And I do mean every time. The entire floor is one ridiculously long hallway with a large window at each end. The windows are covered with a couple layers of curtains which can be opened or closed. Anyway, the most common thing to be seen on that floor is someone standing behind the curtains at the end. But when you look back, they're gone. But it's different with me. I have actually seen her. She wears a white nightgown and likes to sit in a chair and impatiently watch while the housekeepers clean the rooms. She slams drawers as I walk by or slams into the ice machines. I've seen her reflection in the windows running on all 4s in my direction. She sets off the fire alarms if she thinks I'm being lazy or just lets out a shrill scream. I don't really have a problem with the dumb bitch, but she is annoying as hell. Like, that is too much. I think I would just get another job. I don't think I could handle that. Alright guys, so the next story is called Haunted Office by Mellow Fluffy. This happened to me 4 years ago and I can still remember every detail because it was one of the creepiest experiences I have ever had. I worked as an in-house graphic artist for a cosmetics company. During the day, the office was normally busy and full of people, but at night nobody wanted to work overtime alone. If we needed to do so, it was usually by groups of 3 or 4. I've heard stories about chairs swiveling on their own, about dark shadows moving about. I found it fascinating since I was interested in the paranormal, but I never thought that something strange would ever happen to me. My boss instructed me to go to the office one Saturday afternoon. I thought that since it wasn't at night, it wouldn't be creepy to work there alone. I was wrong. Nothing happened during the first 2 hours I was there. The office was completely silent. I decided to play some music on my computer to create a bit of noise while I edited my project. On the 3rd hour, something strange started to happen. I heard the sound of running feet, like a pair of rubber shoes squeaking against the marble floor. I thought that maybe it was coming from the office next door since the walls were pretty thin. Then I heard the sound come closer as if it was running right in front of me. Take note that I was the only person within the office. There was nothing in front of me except empty desks and cubicles. The security guard was outside guarding the main entrance. He had to walk through a long hallway before entering the office area. It was unlikely that I was hearing his footsteps, so I stopped the music to listen to it more clearly. The footsteps were still there. It kept running from left to right, then back again, and it really sounded as if it was happening right in front of my desk. I don't get scared easily, so I merely shrugged and just upped the volume of my music so I can continue editing the needed files. The running stopped. I breathed a sigh of relief. I honestly thought that maybe I was just imagining it. Then I heard 3 different voices laughing behind my back. This time the hair on my arms rose. You see, there were floor-to-ceiling windows right behind my back. The office was on the 21st floor. I turned around and saw nothing but the sky outside and a few far-away buildings. I shut the music off. The laughter continued on. That was it. I just couldn't ignore it anymore. I saved my project to my USB, logged off my computer, and grabbed my bag and walked away. It was company policy that the last person leaving the office must also lock the door. Since I was the only employee in the area, I had to make sure that it was locked properly. I did what I had to do and went on my way. Halfway through the hallway, I heard something click and turn. By this time, my heart was pounding faster and faster. I knew I shouldn't have looked back, but I did. The door that I was so sure was locked slowly swung open. There was no wind, nobody was there, then it slammed back shut. I ran the fuck out of there. That would have been the first and last time that I ever go there by myself. That's really creepy. Okay guys, so now for the last story. It is called I Used to Work in a Haunted House, and this is by LoveCats29. I used to work in a haunted house. At first glance, it didn't look like much. A simple split level on a residential street in a suburb of Jacksonville, Florida. My employers had renovated the house to be a small office and a print shop. We moved from our location in a strip mall to the finished house shortly after I started working there in early 1994. And then the weird stuff started. It was little things at first. You put your pen down on the counter and turn to do something and the pen is gone. You look everywhere only for the pen to show up where you know you left it in the first place. The computers went haywire and we had fairly new Macs which were trouble-free in the old location. We started joking about the ghost. The ghost took your pen, the ghost crashed your computer again, and it was funny for a while. And then the cleaning crew quit because they saw a little girl floated outside the upstairs window. My boss and owner of the company joked around about it at first, and then the employees started sharing their stories. A man in overalls with mutton chop sideburns was seen in the house when the first employees arrived for the day. They unlocked the doors and turned off the security system and searched the building, which wasn't very big to begin with. No one was to be found. An employee working late by himself heard someone come in the front door and walk down the hall. He expected it to be our boss, who worked long and odd hours, but when he called out to her, no one was there. That particular employee worked late pretty often. On a different night, he heard the water cooler go glug, 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 like someone had gotten a glass of water from it. I know what you are thinking. Sometimes those coolers make noises on their own, but this one was bone dry, no water in it. He packed up his stuff and left for the night. Then the interactions got more intense. One particular worker was pinched and scratched in the back room of the house that we used for our bindery area and storage. My boss, who would come to work at 3 or 4 in the morning, has several experiences. One morning, she came to work and went down to the back room to get some files. As she was leaving, she heard a voice tell her to turn out the lights. So she complied. She also claimed to have had a full-on conversation with a little girl apparition. The girl showed up one day outside of the front door. My boss asked her where her parents were and where she lived. She turned around and the girl had disappeared. Now, up until this point, I had heard a lot of stories, but hadn't had anything happen to me. I think part of the reason was that I, A, did not work after dark and or alone, and B, said out loud to whatever was there that I did not want to see or hear it. But one particular day, I was working at my computer and our pressman, a die-hard skeptic and volunteer fireman, came up from the garage to grab a soda out of the kitchen. He passed by my desk before pausing and darting upstairs to the accounting offices. He came back down the stairs looking white as a ghost and asked if our boss had passed by my desk. I told him that no one had been by. Then he explained to me that he had seen our boss in her office by the kitchen when he went to get his soda. She was standing there smiling at him. He assumed she was ribbing him for dropping a bunch of rush jobs on him. When he came back into my area, he said he got a horrible feeling of dread, that something was very, very wrong and he needed to go upstairs to check. He had no reason for feeling this way. It was just a gut reaction. When he got upstairs, he saw my boss talking to our accountant. She had been up there for half an hour going over the accounts. So who or what was in front of the house? I would never forget the fear and shock I saw on his face when he realized that he had seen something that he could not explain. That Halloween, a local radio station had a contest. They would broadcast from a haunted location in the area. We entered and told all about our stories and won. The radio station came out early that morning before I was even awake. By the time I got in my car and started to listen, things had already been happening. Equipment was failing in the back room and they had to use their cell phones to broadcast. Voices were heard over the radio that weren't heard by the people in the house. A ruler had been suspended on a wall and falling right in front of my coworker. Crazy stuff. As soon as I got to work, I ran to find someone who had witnessed the ruler falling. A coworker took me to the infamous back room and showed me where the metal ruler had been suspended high on a wall, right above a doorway. There was no shelf or even molding of any kind around the door. It was just painted cinder block. As she explained this to me, over to our left we saw another coworker. He was just standing there staring at us while we talked. Suddenly, here is this same coworker coming in the door on the opposite side of the room. The two of us looked at each other and asked him how he did that. He looked at us like we were nuts and said that he had been out back cleaning the mop for a while. There was absolutely no way he could have gone from where we saw him to the back door. Later, we listened to some of the earlier broadcasts on playback. At the time, I had no idea what an EVP, electronic voice phenomena, was. What I heard on that tape scared me. First, the sound of children playing, and then later, when the DJ was in the back room, you can hear a deep, threatening voice that said,
"Leave me alone."
After the broadcast, my boss was contacted by several psychic mediums. She let probably half a dozen come to the house. Some of them were quacks, but there were 3 or 4 of them who actually came up with the same details. One of these psychics stood out. However, she immediately knew that the house had been renovated and described how it used to look. This used to be a closet, that used to be an old kitchen, and she was completely accurate. She said there were 4 main spirits in the house: a young woman in her late 20s to early 30s, an older man with overalls in his 60s, a little girl around 7 to 9 years old, and a young man in his 20s who was extremely angry and stayed mainly in the backroom area. As she walked to the house, she mentioned a couple of areas. A closet where the little girl had been sent when she was being punished. The psychic made it clear that she wasn't locked in there or abused, but that she can feel the residual energy. She was calm and very matter of fact. That is, until she walked into the back room. As soon as she entered the room, she was visibly shaken. She excused herself and said that she could not stay in the room, that the energy was far too disturbing. She exited through the back door and walked to the center of the yard. She took a minute to compose herself and then apologized. She said as soon as she walked into the room, she could see body parts hanging from the big wooden ceiling beam. Then she turned and pointed at a wooden workbench near the back door. She asked if there had been a second workbench on the other side of the house. Yes, there had been. Then she said that's where he cut them up. That is how we found out that not only was our house/office haunted, but it had been the scene of at least one murder, and a mutilation murder at that. Needless to say, my boss was disturbed. She did some research, and what she found was even more troubling. There had indeed been an incident at the house, but no one had been arrested or tried for the murder because they couldn't find a torso or head. The information she was able to dig up pointed to homeless men being murdered by KKK members, and the sheriff of the town at that time was deeply involved with the Klan, maybe even the Grand Master. At one point, the TV show called Sightings came and did an investigation but didn't catch any evidence. They also did exhaustive research into the incident, but mysteriously all the recordings had been lost. The county said that the state had them. The state said the county had them. The Sightings folks also confirmed our suspicions about the Klan and a cover-up. No wonder that young man in the back room was so angry. I just googled the address and found that the commercial property is available to rent for $2,500 a month. I just wouldn't stay there after dark if I were you. Whew, that is a lot. I think one of the creepiest things about this story is when her and her coworker were talking and their other coworker was looking at them and then he came from the other side. That is so creepy. Alright guys, so there you have it. These are the stories for today. I really hope that you enjoyed them, and if you did, please let me know which one was your favorite, and I will see you next time. Bye.